Hello and welcome to the Mal and Johnny Show. I've got my cap on because it's cold in the shed and it's raining from the house to the shed. Anyway, so that's the reason, Johnny. But look at you. You look as if you're on holiday in the Mediterranean or something.
Well, no, I've been away, haven't I? I went to the Caribbean, so I've still got a bit of a tan. But I've been painting. Look at the state. I mean, I got paint all over my fingers.
What are you painting? Is it a landscape? Is it a portrait?
No, I painted the hallway in my house. Hey, I've been thinking, Mal, about, because you've been doing a lot of radio lately, even early morning stuff and that.
Yeah.
And whenever I've done radio, I've only presented it about a couple of times like a guest, but I've never actually done the whole thing and I've just wondered if the people were interested in how, if you either self-operate or if your producer does it, the guy behind the glass. How do you go about it?
Yeah, no, well, it's funny. Over the years, it has changed. You know, we used to have... So when I first started, I started off as a researcher on a radio program.
Right.
So I used to do all of the, all the background information. So I remember the first thing I ever did, I was coming from university, I had to read a book about Emlyn Williams, the Welsh sort of like writer and actor. And the great thing was he came into the studio because he didn't have Zoom and all that type of stuff then. So he came into the studio. So I had the book. Chris Stewart was a wonderful presenter. And
I remember Chris, yeah.
So for Chris, I used to do like one card or maybe a couple of cards, hello, on today's program, I'm chatting to Emlyn Williams. He wrote this. Emlyn, welcome to the program. So it was all written out there nicely for him. And then question 1, Emlyn, Question 2, Emlyn. So really, as a presenter, because he was doing a lot of interviews as well as playing music,
yes,
he'd need all that information because he couldn't read 8 books a day or know about 8 different subjects.
No. But surely, I mean, whenever I've gone into a studio to do an interview, the guys have usually done a bit of a research before I turn up.
The good ones.
And then the good ones. And they know a bit about me anyway,
Yeah, well, in fact, sometimes they know more about you than you know about yourself, don't they?
That's right, yeah.
Tell me, Johnny, about the man who used to write the songs about farting, which is a story. Who's the guy?
There was a bloke. Yeah. There was a bloke that used to go in Denmark Street, which is the old Tin Pan Alley, and he was a songwriter, proper songwriter.
Yeah.
He'd written stuff for people like Clinton Ford now. But in his spare time for fun, he would write a farting song.
For example, go on, just give us a little flavor.
Well, I don't remember the tune, but I can tell you the words. It was, "'Twas Fat Fred the Fart, a king with his arse, a genius at putting one down. When Fred was in form, he could fart up a storm and evacuate half of the town. Fred would fart just for kicks, do a few fancy tricks, and then blow a big hole in the road. It seemed to be said for Fred not to phone, but to fart loud and clear in Morse code. So Fred was bribed by the gov of the Fox to send a few punters his way. All the beer he could drink, £10 a man, and a new pair of pants every day. The barmaid of the Fox was a mere slip of a girl. Let it not be said Fred had no heart. He would first quench his thirst, drop a short burst, raise his hat, say goodnight and depart." And that's all I can remember.
That's not bad after all these years from Denmark Street.
That's 1969, he told me that.
Goodness me.
But he used to do them about everybody. I mean, he was just a funny bloke. But it was just like a little hobby. While he was doing nothing particularly, he'd write a farting song. He wrote one. Do you remember Clinton Ford?
Yeah. No,
go on.
He
used to do like comedy songs and things like that. But he wrote a record for Clinton Ford called "My Baby's Crazy About My Old Trombone." She goes, what? So the connotation was there again, you see, for the part. And again, back to the radio.
So if you're interviewing somebody, you want to find out something about them. So that's maybe the researcher or the producer has done that before you go into... So you're in the studio now. Johnny Tudor's presenting a program he hasn't presented before. So there'll possibly be an engineer. You'll be an engineer.
Right. That's what happened to me. The guys set up the tapes or the records or whatever. Yeah. And then I would say the next record is da-da-da, and they would play it.
Play it in.
But some people self-operate, don't they? They do it all themselves.
So as time has moved on, it's been less of the gentleman presenter or the gentle lady presenter who just sits there and says, and now the next record is Clinton Ford with a song about farting. And then somebody press the button and play the song in. Right?
Okay.
So, and they just sit there for 3 minutes. But then then you start to self-op. So you might have a producer who's keeping an eye on the time, because obviously the other thing is, it's not like doing a podcast where we can be here all afternoon, couldn't we? Sometimes we are.
Yeah.
But you've got the pips coming up top of the hour, or half an hour news, or 2020 weather, of all those things. So it's sometimes hard for the presenter to be doing the talking and working all that out at the same time. So the producer could quite often do that and say, look, you've got 3 minutes on this record, and after this record you can talk for maybe 50 seconds, and then we need to get into the next record. So then you become a self-operating presenter. In the old days, you used to line up the records. You'd put the record on and you'd wiggle it back to start the record. Right. Hey, Mal, you got 30 seconds. So talk. And this is the new record by Clinton Ford. It's farting. So then you press the button. Okay, you press the button.
Yeah.
And then you'd have a couple of record decks. So you'd have that one playing, get that one sorted, maybe have a spare. But then you move on then to CDs, and now it's all on computer. So if you are one of the new generation of presenters, to be honest, they ask a lot more of you than they used to. You're lucky, particularly in independent radio, to have a sound. You wouldn't have a sound person. You would, you'd have a desk. You wouldn't have a producer, and you'd have 3 hours to fill. But they do choose the music now. So that's all on computer. That's all playlisted. So you don't get a chance to choose your different music. So that's sort of the way it works. The more expensive the program, the bigger the network, the more people you have working on it behind the scenes. Before
now, when you do it from your shed, sometimes you have to do it from your shed.
Yes.
Then what do? They tee everything up in the BBC, which is like 40 miles away.
Yeah.
You do your chat, and they do it up there. Is that what happens?
It is now. When I started doing it, I started playing the music in as well. So I'd play the music in on a machine, write down all the details, because you've got to keep the details, because the songwriter and the people who own the record, they'll get paid.
PRS and all that, yeah.
But it is sort of, I'm not sure, they don't trust me anymore. So they have the person in Cardiff, in particular, or London, when I do Premier Christian Radio, they have the music lined up there. But the thing is, because you can share screens, you can see the record counting down and everything. So your timing's much more easy. And maybe the people who are the technical guys or technical girls become the producer as well. So there are fewer jobs as everybody tries to cut back on manpower. But the bigger the show, the more money they've got to spend on a show, bigger the guests, then you've got more people working for you.
It's amazing. A lot of people ask me about filming and stuff, because, what they don't realize, I think, about film is it's so different from multi-camera when you're in the studio. They don't use multi-camera much these days. They do it on Poblecombe. They do it on probably on all the soaps.
Okay, so let's explain. What's a multi-camera then, Johnny?
All right, of course. So there's 4 cameras in the studio, okay? So up in the box, you got the producer and the vision mixer, right? The vision mixer changes from camera 1 to camera 3 when she's told by the producer, but cut to camera 2, cut to camera 3. That's to get reactions from somebody. So if I'm talking to you in a scene and they want your reaction, they'll click the camera that's bang on you. Then they'll cut to another camera coming back to me. Now with film, they don't do that. They use one camera.
That's tricky, isn't it?
So they'll do a master shot, which is you and I standing talking to each other, right?
Right, okay.
Then, so the camera will be over there, looking at the two of us talking.
Yeah.
Then they'll move the camera. We'll have 10 minutes where they move the camera, set everything up, and they'll shoot the same line over my shoulder, looking at you.
Right.
Then they'll take it and go behind you, and they'll do the same shot with me looking at me. So they got 3 shots of the same scene. It's got to be exactly the same. So you got to remember if you had a cigarette in the left hand or the right hand, don't you?
Yeah.
And then they cut it. When they get it all together, then the editor will put it all together. So you can say, well, I'll cut there and put there. So he's got everything done. But within a studio, but as you know, these days, there's not much done in studios.
No.
Only like soaps and things. Like most drama is done outside on film.
Yeah.
And there's no real big music shows anymore. So that's basically how it happens.
Yeah, and I suppose that it saves a lot of time, doesn't it? If you can get the shot with, one go rather than have to reset and do it again and do it again.
Yeah,
and do it again.
But it's a different look though, in it? Film's a different look altogether.
Different look.
Yeah.
Would you fancy doing more radio presenting, do you think?
I don't know. Years ago, I did an audition for Teleri Bevan. Do you remember Teleri?
I do remember Teleri, yes.
She asked me to do a program, and I did it. I did a program where I chose like 12 of records or whatever, and I did it. But I didn't get a series out of it. But I quite enjoyed it. But then, as I say, I had the producers doing it for me.
What I found was, we're talking back and forth now, so that's
Yeah.
quite natural. And I
Yeah.
had done an awful lot of interviews before I became a broadcaster. And then I suddenly realized it's very different art to being just answering questions than it is for talking for 2 minutes about anything. And actually, my first sort of go at it was in 1987. They sacked this guy. BBC Radio Wales didn't want him anymore. His name was Rob Jones. So I got his show. He went to London, as you do, because you don't give up. He went to London and changed his name to Rob Brydon. And
now he's a big star. That's right, he was a disc jockey. I remember he told me.
Rob Jones, as he was then. So I took over his show. So I remember speaking to Chris Stewart, who was my idol as a broadcaster. He, on the same day I went to Radio Wales, he went to Radio 2. And he said, look, what you got to do is write every link down, from the hello, good morning, and this record and that record. Write all the links down. He said, and after 3 or 4 weeks, you won't need to. And he was right.
Yeah.
You learn to do it.
Yeah, you just get used to doing it. Yeah.
It's like anything, the sad thing about broadcasting, you've got to do it in public. You've got to make your mistakes in public.
Yeah.
That's why
what would frighten me about doing it like that, I'd be worried I'd run out of stuff to say.
Yeah.
And then you got a big gap. You know what I mean? Yeah. I can talk to you because you're asking me something, so I got something to come back at.
Yeah.
So as you say, if you write something down, just give yourself a bit of a cue what you're going to say next link.
Yeah. But it's got to the stage now where I take it as a matter of pride when they say, right, Mal, got a minute and a half to fill after this. I go, yeah, it's fine. And I like doing it to the clock. So I'm watching the clock going down as it's counting down, and you talking about whatever it is, and it's amazing. You get quite cocky at it as well. So I take it as a matter. I mean, I'm rubbish at talking, but I can talk to time, Johnny. I can talk
That's good.
to time.
When I've done radio before, I've done radio plays, right? Mm-hmm. And then you got these Foley artists they used to have, but making the noises.
Yes.
Like somebody crunching in a tray, somebody walking up a pathway, or you're kissing some bird, you go. That was it. But I don't think they use them anymore, do they? I mean, they probably just stick sound effects in.
Oh yeah. Well, that was the interesting thing, and I didn't realize. I always thought with films, when you see films, when somebody's walking down the corridor and it's a bit creepy, and then they open the door. Those sounds are incredible, aren't they? And it was years later that I realised that was the job of the Foley artist.
That's right. He puts it in.
And it's like
Where does that come from? The name Foley artist.
I think it was Mr. Foley. I think in Hollywood, Mr. Foley did it.
All right.
And it's amazing, because I made a film called Jack to a King about the Swans, and we had this really old footage, which was a bit lifeless, really. But they'd have a scene of a plastic bag on some barbed wire, like a Tesco's bag on a barbed wire, and you'd see it and you think, oh, that's pretty, okay, rubbish shot. But then they'd get the Tesco's bag in the Foley room, they'd scrunch it up, and suddenly the picture comes to life because of what you're hearing as well as what you're seeing.
That's right.
It is quite remarkable. And one last thing then about a producer. I was once told, not any children listening. I've got a desk in front of me here, and this guy was a friend of mine was on a college course, and they're saying. Do you know what a pan is? Don't you? Pan is like left. But one signal,
left to right,
turn to the left or turn to the right. Left speaker, right speaker. And the lecturer said, "And can anybody tell me the name of the knob that chooses where in the where pan is, whether it's left or right?" And the guy put his hand up and he said, "The name of the knob who chooses where in the spectrum the pan will be is the producer."
They used to say too, somebody's working the pots.
Oh.
Now, I know that's the stuff in the studio, but I wasn't sure what it meant.
Yeah.
I know what they were doing, but where does they get the word pots from?
I don't know.
Oh, I don't know, but I don't know.
Pots, I suppose that's, you pot it left and right.
It's probably short for something.
Yeah. Okay.
He's on the pots. I mean, I don't know. But BBC Wales was the only bloke that had a lighting guy that had one eye.
Yes.
And a sound guy that was deaf. I won't say the names because they know they are. But that's BBC Wales.
There we are. Opportunities, open door opportunities. That's right. They've always
That's
had that.
right. Yeah. But I mean, it's amazing all these things that we take for granted. But there's a lot goes into all this stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll let the technical. Obviously, we've got a whole team of technical people working on this show, so we'll let them
you and me
get to grips with it now. And this episode will be out before you know it, Johnny.
Okie dokie.
All right. Well,
what were you doing this morning? You've been interviewed this morning.
Oh yeah, because a week on Tuesday I'm at All Souls Langham Place. It's part of Wales.
Oh, you
Week,
told me about that gig. Yeah.
And Steve Balsam has agreed to come and do just a couple of songs, which would be nice. So we're going to go up in a van together. And
do you know what? Steve is such a great singer.
Yeah.
I mean, and that Gethsemane thing, it blows my mind, and yet he didn't want to do it anymore. Being ambitious when I was young, I would have wanted to keep doing it, go into Hollywood and all this, because he could have. He was good enough to do that.
Well, he's making his own records at last. He's making his own records again. So my fingers are crossed. I have a go at him every time, and that's why I'm taking him to London. I'm gonna like Dick Whitty.
He's a lovely bloke. He's such an unassuming fella.
Tidy boy indeed. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll see you next week, God willing.
I will be here. I'll probably have finished my painting. Yeah. I won't be covered in paint.
it's actually, there was just one last thing, because I grew up in the gospel hall circuits. There was one name, because everybody had a nickname, didn't they? John the Dirty Painter, his name was. I thought, what is he? Does he paint me like those French women? No, apparently he was just a dirty painter. He's just
all over his hands.
So it's goodbye from Johnny Tudor, the dirty painter, and it's
goodbye from Maldwyn, who's going to be singing the gospel songs.
See you soon. Bye.
Ta-ra, Mal. Ta-ra.